Greg, you were born in Somerset in England. You moved to New Zealand at the age of 12. You didn't start playing until you were 10 years old. So is it true to say that your football started to really develop when you were in New Zealand itself?
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. Yeah, like I say, I think the first club I played for was when I was 10. So I played for their under 12s team, a club called Chard down in Somerset. So I was playing a year up. So didn't really, I wasn't a regular playing every week sort of thing. Scored a few goals, but probably the season before I moved to New Zealand, had a great season for the would have been the under 13s. So I scored 60 goals in that season, and I suppose that's where I got the bug, got the love for scoring goals. But yeah, that was my final season in England, and then moved to New Zealand. And football and cricket, to be fair, just sort of took over. So I was playing just as much cricket at the time for the first couple of years. And then, the longer we stayed in New Zealand, football slowly started to overtake the cricket. Not through choice, but just the way it developed. Before I knew it, I was sort of training 5-6 times a week, and sometimes training more than once a day. So football just took over, just loved every minute over in New Zealand. I wasn't overly happy with Mum and Dad for moving us across there when I was 12. Just started secondary school down in Somerset, so I just settled in down there and kicked up hell of a fuss. But luckily Mum and Dad went through with it, and obviously that move to New Zealand was a massive part of everything, including 10 years at TNS. That all sort of followed from that, really.
So not necessarily happy initially, but as you look back, a blessing in disguise. And while you started to progress in your football in New Zealand, you also became involved with the national team as well. How did that initially happen? Yeah,
so I was playing at a decent level in New Zealand, sort of representative level, so equivalent to county level over here, I suppose. I was playing with a lad called Jeremy Brocky, who was already part of the New Zealand age group team. So it was my first New Zealand age group team was the under 20s, and it was the final camp before they went to the under 20 World Cup in Canada. So I'd had no involvement with them up until then. Literally final camp, I think there's probably about 30 players there. Final squad hadn't been picked, but Jeremy Brocky spoke to the coach, who was Stu Jacobs, and said, there's this lad down in Christchurch who's probably worth having a look at. So he got me up there, and I probably trained there for 4 or 5 days. In camp, all stayed together. Didn't know anyone really. Knew a couple of players from Christchurch, but it was mainly sort of Auckland and Wellington-based players. So it was quite an intimidating time, but I obviously done well, and he picked me for the final squad. So through Jeremy Brocky, really, that's how it all started. Ended up going to Canada, playing in the under 20 World Cup. I remember on the way we went to Costa Rica, played a friendly over there. USA, played a friendly over there, and then up to Canada, where we played Portugal, Gambia and Mexico. And it was just a brilliant tournament, really. It happened all happened so fast. I didn't really get a chance to take it all in, but looking back now, it was an amazing few weeks.
And also featured in the Olympics as well in China.
Yeah, so that was 2007 was the under 20 World Cup, and then 2008 was the Olympics. So we had the qualifiers probably in the January or February, I think, in Fiji, I think it was. So we played 5 games in about 7 or 8 days. I think we won every game. I remember one of the games I actually had to come off with heat exhaustion. I was struggling, so they had to bring me off there. And then originally I was left out of the final squad to the Olympics, which was heartbreaking. I remember we were in camp, and the final squad was yet to be announced, so we were all in camp, and he called me in. So there's about 4 of us sat around the table, and they just sort of let me know that I hadn't made the final squad. I remember I was probably 17 or 18 at the time, was I? Something like that. And I just broke down in tears. Just started crying my eyes out, because obviously the Olympics, and I was big part of the qualifiers, so I was, really looking forward to it. So yeah, to be told that I was going to be left out of the final squad, I was heartbroken. I literally just cried and cried, and the lads got round me, and made sure I was all right. But that took a bit of getting over. But luckily for me, and unfortunately for one of the other lads, they ended up getting injured I think it was in Australia, where they had pre-Olympic friendlies. And I just remember getting a phone call from New Zealand Football saying, pack your bags, you're on the next flight out, basically, to Beijing. So again, it was one of them where, I just didn't have time to sort of take in what was happening, really. I was literally just running around like a lunatic, packing my bags, getting to the airport. And I arrived the day before we played the first game against China, I think it was. Didn't feature in that game. But in the second game, we played Brazil. Brazil had Ronaldinho, Marcelo, Pato, Lucas, Anderson, who was at United at the time, so they had an unbelievable team. I came on at half-time in that game, so I got 45 minutes against Ronaldinho, so didn't get too close to him, unfortunately, but just another unbelievable experience, really. And then went on to play Belgium in the final game, who again had a really strong squad. So looking back now, those two years, really, 2007 Under-20 World Cup, 2008 Olympics, just two of the best years of my life, really.
Some great memories there, Greg. But also, as you shared, the disappointment of not initially being selected. And perhaps that's one side of football that fans in general don't see. They think that the life of a footballer is glamorous, it's all wonderful. But whether you're a young boy, a teenager, or even as an adult, there's a lot of disappointment within the game itself.
Yeah, I don't think you'll make it as a footballer if you can't handle disappointments and setbacks. I can't imagine there's a footballer in the world that hasn't had a really big setback at some time or other, whether it's having a big injury or getting left out of teams like we said about before. It's about how you deal with those setbacks. Having those setbacks early on, getting left out of those squads, probably made me stronger and made me sort of learn a few things at an early age, which has obviously helped as my career's gone on.
And your career did develop. You returned back to live in England, and obviously you came to the attention of Stoke, and they signed you to play for them. Yeah, so after the Olympics I had a couple of years playing in New Zealand, one in Australia, just wanted to give it a shot back here, really. So I come back to stay with some family down in Somerset. A lad that I was playing with in New Zealand for one of my clubs was Drew Sherman, his dad is Rob Sherman, who's quite a big part of Welsh football many years ago. But he sorted me out a trial with Newport County. So I went to trade with them for a few days. Nothing worked out there, but the manager there was in touch with the Basingstoke manager, their striker, their number 9, who they just signed, I think, picked up a bad injury, done his cruciate ligaments. So he was out for the season, so they were desperate for a striker. So again, obviously his misfortune was my sort of good fortune, I suppose. Went down there, played a friendly against Reading, done really well, and signed that night. So had a good season with them. Scored 15 goals in the league and 12 goals in the other cup competitions. I suppose that was a good season. My first sort of proper season of non-league football, if you like, which sort of led to me coming to TNS. Well, it was quite a leap from initially Somerset down to New Zealand, but also from Basingstoke to the New Saints.
Yeah.
That's also quite a leap as well.
Yeah.
How did that connection come around?
So that was through a lad called Chris Davis, who is Leicester City assistant manager now for Brendan Rodgers. So I was playing with Chris back in Wellington in New Zealand. He came back here. He got a job working for Brendan Rodgers as his analysis whilst Brendan was at Swansea. So whilst he was at Swansea, Chris was training with Neath. So he put me in touch with Andy Dyer, who was the Neath manager at the time. I went up to meet Andy, didn't train with him or anything, but they offered me something just based on Chris's recommendation. Before anything got signed, Andy Dyer ended up getting the sack from Neath. Andy Dyer was business partners with Mike Davis, who was the TNS manager at the time. So he put me in touch with him. Mike Davis invited me up here for a week's trial. I think we played a friendly against Cliftonville possibly, which I done really well in. I think I signed for a month originally just to cover the European games where we played. I think we ended up playing Cliftonville again actually. But on the back of that month they ended up offering me a 2-year contract with the option of an added year. So yeah, basically offered me a 3-year contract from there, and that's where it all comes from, really, the 10 years.
You've mentioned several names along the way. They've all been instrumental in the next step that you've made. It shows that in football particularly, contacts are so important.
Yeah, no, I keep telling people it's all who you know. Not just in football, but in every aspect of life, I think, but particularly football, it's all who you know. There's so many people have played a part in my career, getting me to obviously achieve what I have achieved, and it's definitely something that I'm going to sort of remember and help out as many people as I can. Really, there's a lad who's come across from New Zealand now who played for the same club as me back in New Zealand, who's across here at the moment. So I'm helping him out as best as I can and putting him in touch with as many people as I can, and just giving him the opportunity really that all those people gave me.
And do you stay in touch with people from New Zealand, or maybe even back to Chard, the season that you scored all those goals?
Yeah, so I stay in touch with a few people, particularly the big coaches and big players that I played with back in New Zealand, especially now obviously that the last sort of couple of months, the way it's gone for me, sort of coming towards the end of the playing days and moving into the next chapter. So I've definitely spoken to a lot of people who have had a big influence on my career, just to sort of bounce ideas off them really, and just spoken to as many people as I could really, just to, like I say, just to get as many ideas as possible and as many opinions as possible, just so I can make the best decision possible really.
And when you came to the New Saints for the first time, you trialled, they were looking at you, of course, you felt you did well, but would you have imagined at that time that would be the next decade of your playing career sorted?
No, definitely not. I think any football club, you never imagine yourself being there more than 2, 3, 4 years. You look at players now, a lot of players just move clubs year to year, so I'm really happy that I've obviously fitted in well and obviously achieved a lot, which has meant the club have kept me for 10 years, and obviously I've been really happy here as well, which has meant that I've wanted to stay here for that length of time. So yeah, I mean, looking back, you never imagine that 10 years later you're still going to be at the same club, but I'm really happy that I am, and wouldn't have changed any of it.
And you mentioned finding the net a few times so far in our chat, but while at the New Saints you went on to become the all-time leading goalscorer.
Yeah, that's obviously a massive achievement, one that I'm really proud of. A record that I didn't really sort of start looking at until probably a couple of years ago now. Probably the first time was when I reached 100 goals for the club. I think we spoke about it before. So I got to 100 goals and just thought, have a look and see what the record was. Realised that Wildy'd scored we thought 151 originally. So I thought, still 51 goals to go. So it's still a big ask. But luckily, going back to the club, luckily they looked after me for a few years. And gave me enough time to chase that record down.
But we did speak indeed, didn't we, on the day that you broke the 100 barrier.
Yeah.
I remember it well, Greg. You were downstairs, it was obviously some time before kick-off, and you said to me, I'm playing and I'm going to do it today, and you did it in style.
Yeah, I don't know, it was just, I don't think I'd scored. I think that was my first goal of the season, wasn't it, in that game? I hadn't scored, and I remember, I think we played Carnarvon or someone the week before. And I remember saying to Louis Robles, actually, I was going out onto the pitch, and I was just feeling like I wasn't going to score. I didn't know where the next goal was going to come from. And then, for some reason that morning, I woke up and, we were playing Flint. I just knew I was going to do it that day. And like I said, I obviously said to you that I was going to do it. So that's how confident I was. And luckily I managed to back up my confident words. But it's just nice to finally get there. And looking back now, 165 goals, I'd like to think that will stand for a good few years yet. It's going to take someone a long time to chase that down, so hopefully it's one that I can hang on to for a long time.
And as you began then to progress beyond the 100 and Mike Wild's record became closer and closer and closer, did you feel nervous at any time or apprehensive that maybe you wouldn't surpass his total?
I think the only time I was nervous that I might not get it was once the season before last ended prematurely because of COVID. I can't remember what I was on then, possibly what did I get to, 150? I think I got to 150 or 151, and the season got called off, and I started panicking, thinking that they might scrap the league and then all those goals might get taken off me. I might end up going back to 133, in which case I'd probably need another sort of 2, possibly 3 years to get it. But luckily all those goals stood, and luckily they did, because obviously, as it turned out, last season was obviously my last, and I only scored 14 goals. So if those goals had been taken off me and I only finished up with 14 goals, then I still wouldn't have got there. So luckily, like I say, that was the only time I got nervous. I'm always confident that I'll get close to 20 goals in a season. So I knew that time was on my side as long as those goals didn't get taken off me.
And when you finally did break the record, that one goal that did it, will that be, looking back, perhaps the highlight of your career in terms of goals scored? In terms of
goals scored, yeah, definitely up there. And obviously records, that's obviously the goal scoring record that I'm most proud of, especially taking off a player like Michael Wild, who's obviously still scoring goals for fun and been by far one of the best players in the league this season. So to take a record off a player like that is, you have to be proud of that. Obviously I scored a lot of important goals as well for TNS over the years, which have contributed to a lot of games won, a lot of cups won, and a lot of league titles won. So those goals are all equally as important, I'd say.
And coming on to the silverware itself, league titles, Welsh Cup wins, League Cup trophies lifted as well. You've had an impressive career as far as that's concerned. Yeah, I think it's something that you don't realise how lucky you are, really. I mean, a lot of players go through their whole careers without winning a single trophy. So to be at a club where you're fortunate enough to win 20 plus trophies is something that you've got to be really grateful for. Obviously it's helped. The team that we've had over the last decade has just been streets above everyone else, really, and that's obviously down to the club, down to the managers that have been here to make sure that we are so much stronger. But yeah, I mean, you look at some of the players that I've played with. I've been very lucky that they've really made my job a hell of a lot easier than the fact that a lot of the time I've just got to stand in the box and they do all the hard work, and I've ended up tapping the ball in the net and getting all the glory, I suppose. But it's just been a great 10 years. It's just had everything, goals, trophies, and the most important thing for me was obviously the great memories that I've been able to share with all the lads. A lot of the lads that are still here now. That's the most important thing for me, is sharing those moments with teammates like that who I'll stay in touch with for the rest of my life. You've made lots of memories domestically with the New Saints, and also of course internationally with New Zealand, but also on the European stage you've featured in a fair number of games representing TNS. Yeah,
played in a lot of European games, just the 2 European goals I think, but yeah, obviously an important one home here against the Kosovan team, which was obviously set us up for, I think we ended up drawing 2-2, didn't we? But obviously going out there and getting the result that we did, and the atmosphere that was out there was probably one of the best atmospheres we've played in, I'd say. We've obviously played against Legia Warsaw, which was an unbelievable atmosphere, but I just think the way that Kosovan crowd sort of were really doing everything they could to sort of intimidate us, and they probably did intimidate us really, because it was backs to the walls for about 90 minutes of that game, really. We just hung on, really, defended with everything. Without doubt, one of the best performances we've had in Europe. So it was nice to be part of that one.
And whether fans or goals or some other aspect of the memory, is there a particular game in Europe that stands out for you?
Obviously that one, more than most, I would say. Legia Warsaw for the atmosphere. San Marino was my first European goal away. I remember John Routledge set me up. He's always given me a hard time because he's always trying to set me up, and I've always somehow managed to mess up his assists. So I haven't got him as many assists as I would have liked to have, or he would have liked me to have. But yeah, I remember that one well. Yeah, those are the main ones. Cyprus, Nicosia was again a great game to be part of. Great atmosphere, conditions just boiling hot. I know we ended up losing the game, but the lads just gave absolutely everything. So yeah, those are the games I remember most.
And there's a good team spirit in the camp as well at the New Saints. So as well as on the pitch, the memories that go with that, you've also made some good friendships off it as well.
Yeah, I made a lot of good friends. It was when it got announced that I wasn't going to be staying on as a player. I think pretty much every single player sort of messaged me privately just to say, thanks for everything over the last, however many years that I've played with them. I really enjoyed it. I said exactly the same back. Just loved every minute of it. There's some really big characters in that change rooms who, and that's probably the one thing that I'll miss more than anything. Really, is just having that day-to-day sort of bond with the lads, if you want, in the change rooms before training, out on the training pitch, because you just end up having a really good laugh most of the time. As you know, but so that's what I miss most. But obviously, I'll stay in touch with most of the lads anyway. Catching up on the golf course or whatever. But also, still staying part of the club. So still seeing them on a regular basis as well throughout the week, which will be nice, and which was a big part of me sort of taking the role that's been offered.
And as your career on the pitch has now sadly come to an end, were you expecting it, or perhaps half expecting it, during the course of the season?
Yeah, I think it was probably on the cards. Just look at the way the season sort of panned out. Wasn't featuring too much on the starting lineup. Obviously coming off the bench regularly, but especially when the new manager came in, I think 10 games to go, I think I only started one game under him. So yeah, it was obviously not a massive shock when the manager and Ian called me into the office to sort of tell me the bad news. But yeah, like you say, it was on the cards, but still having that conversation and being told that you're not going to be offered a playing contract was still a hard one to take, and got a little lump in my throat, and because you suddenly realise that 10 years of playing for a club is coming to an end. So it was a difficult one to take, but I think having that sort of half expectancy that maybe it was coming was made it a little bit easier to deal with. And
as you look back now to that moment when you were told, have you moved on from that? You've handled it, you've put it totally behind you? Yeah, that's gone now. So it took a couple of weeks, and obviously the club very kind in offering me a full-time role. Said that they didn't want to lose me completely, and how good I am around the club and around the town, and with the lads and stuff. So they made it very clear that they wanted to try and sort something which would suit both of us, which I was really happy about. Again, it was obviously a big decision because it would mean sort of giving up playing at a competitive level, I guess, or at this level. So again, it took a couple of weeks to think it all over, really, and that was obviously a time when I spoke to a lot of people and just went through every scenario and every option. And yeah, we just decided that for the long term, it was the best option. And again, to sort of stay working for this club, who've obviously given me a lot of opportunities and looked after me and offering me this role, it was the best option we decided for everyone, really. And you have a number of roles with the club now. Coaching is one of them. You're doing coaching with both the foundation and the academy. Yeah, so it's something that I've been doing a little bit the last 2 to 3 years with the academy. Not quite as full on as now, but I've definitely sort of been dipping my toes in there, if you like, over the last few years, and just sort of
Just just getting the ball rolling, I guess, in quite a slow way over the last couple of years. Mainly because obviously I was still a player, and so that was my main focus, was just making sure I gave myself every opportunity to do myself justice on the football pitch, really. But yeah, I think obviously having that couple of years coaching on a small basis sort of made me realise that that's what I wanted to do long term. I've obviously got the chance to do it full time now. It's probably just obviously come a couple of years earlier than I was expecting. But yeah, now that it's come and we've made that decision, it's something that I'm really looking forward to.
And when you first got involved with the academy on a coaching level a couple of years or so back, was that your initiative, was that theirs, or was it something that just happened and came about?
Yeah, I think it was a bit of both, really. I mean, obviously, being a player, and I suppose being the player that I was sort of, I don't know, one of the fans' favourites or whatever, if you like to call it. The kids all like coming up to me and approaching me and that sort of stuff and asking me for advice. So I thought, I'll come down and do a couple of training sessions. So obviously spoke to Jason Brindley about the opportunity to help out. So yeah, it was just a bit of both, really. And obviously as soon as I started doing it, really enjoyed it. Started doing the coaching badges. And it probably wasn't until I'd done my B licence at Colliers Park that I realised that I really did enjoy it. And the thought that goes into it all, and the detail that goes into it all, is something that sort of really appealed to me. So it's just really looking forward to obviously doing it on a much more regular basis now.
And as you've swapped the blue tracksuit of a player for the black one of the staff, you're also involved with TNS Ladies as well from this season.
Yeah, so that's another one of the roles. I'll be assisting a chap called Andy Williams, who's got a really great CV. So he's had a lot to do with women's football, boys football, men's football. I know he scouts for England for the FA. He's worked with Paul Harris and John Routledge at Liverpool. So I spoke to John and Paul about him, and they both, just couldn't praise him enough, really. So again, that sort of helped me in making the decision. The chance to work with Andy is something that I'm really looking forward to. Obviously, I'm going to learn a lot from him. He says he's looking forward to learning a lot from me. I'm sure I'll be learning a lot more from him, unfortunately for him. But so that's another part that we're looking forward to. Obviously, that season will start getting underway in September, so a bit of time from that yet, but time to sort of start planning and giving that team the best opportunity, really, to do as well as they can.
And none of us have a crystal ball as far as absolute clarity into the future is concerned. But as you do look ahead, do you see coaching, management as potentially the area that you would like to continue in?
Yeah, I think definitely coaching long term is the area I want to focus in. Management side of things, not really thought anything about that. Just because all I've done is coaching at the moment. The management side of things could potentially evolve. One of my roles will be to take the scholars. So the scholars have two teams, so one of my roles will be to take one of those matches on a Wednesday. So obviously that will be my sort of first opportunity to really sort of take charge of a team on a match day. It's something that I'm looking forward to. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully I do a good enough job and I get the buzz for it, and potentially management could be something I think about seriously in the future.
You've been at the New Saints 10 years, you live locally, you've played for New Zealand. As you said, Greg, the fans' favourite, that's a term that we've used ourselves in media as well to describe you. Obviously now, as you push forward, another role that you've taken on with the club is that of ambassador. That the stage has already been set because you are a popular figure, you're well liked, you're approachable, you're easy to get on with. How do you see that particular role developing? Yeah,
I mean, it's probably something that I've just naturally done anyway over the last 10 years, certainly living in town, especially Oswestry. It's quite a small, close-knit community where everyone sort of knows everyone, and certainly being there for 10 years, I've got to know more and more people, and it's just something that I enjoy, really. Just talking to people, meeting new people, and talking about the club. So it's a role that I'm looking forward to, but a role that I've probably naturally been doing anyway. It's probably just got a more official title now, I suppose. But yeah, I think it's something that will work well. So yeah, it's basically just I'm just going to be forming links with the community throughout a variety of places. So the grassroots football clubs, we're going to look to sort of work closer with them rather than against, which I suppose has been the case over the last few years. Working more closer with the schools as well, and obviously also the businesses as well, and just trying to attract more and more people to games, not just getting them here for one game, but getting them to come back the following week and bring more people, because obviously the football that's on show is very good to watch at times. I think people, when they come down here for the first time, they're really surprised at the standard. So yeah, I think it's just a case of getting those people to keep coming back, and I think obviously now COVID's slowly, taking the backstage. It should become easier to get to get new people down into the ground, and just giving them that experience really that makes them want to come back. So obviously becoming closer with the first team players, I think something that obviously for the kids. If the kids go to a game and they've got the chance to meet the first team players, then that goes a long way to that, making that kid's day really, and he's gonna want to come back the following week. So yeah, that's what we'll be working towards, and hopefully we can see the numbers increase over the next year or two.
And what's it been like in the last couple of weeks, coming to the club, seeing the players out there on the pitch? Is the part of you that still feels, I wish that was me? Or, as we said earlier, have you been able to draw the line under it, deal with it, move on, and this is a new chapter?
I've definitely missed it. It's not something that's got me down or put me in a bad mood. Don't get me wrong, I sat on the balcony and wished that I could join in the five-a-side games at the end or whatever, and just run around having a laugh with a lot of the lads like we used to. But no, it's not something that gets me down, or I sit on that balcony and I just have a good time watching the lads every now and again. I'm happy that that's how it's worked out, because I wasn't 100% sure. Obviously, the first time that I come back, I wasn't 100% sure how I would feel about it, but knowing that I'm okay with it, it sort of reassured me that I'm doing the right thing.
And although you've hung up your boots, are you likely to take them down at some point in the future, perhaps at a lower level, as it were, or even a five-a-side kick around with your mates?
Yeah, I definitely haven't hung the boots up officially. Obviously, once I do decide that, then I'll let everyone know. But there's still potential there for me to sort of play every now and again for a team, where it's in the league below or something like that. I'm not sure yet. There's obviously been a few clubs approach me, wondering what the situation is, but obviously at the moment, just getting settled into this new role is my main focus, and if there is an opportunity for me to go and play a few games every now and again, then that's something that we'll look at. But yeah, for now I'm just sort of looking forward to getting settled into this new role, and obviously helping the lads wherever I can get the season underway. Yeah.
Well, Greg Draper, thank you for the insight into your life and career over the years. You've been a fantastic servant for the football club, not just the goals, but your presence in and around the team. And of course, you're continuing that off the field. And as I said to Simon Spender in a similar interview that we did last week, the word legend is very much overused in the world of football, but in both of your cases, it certainly is an appropriate accolade. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks very much, Rev. Thank you.